Every entrepreneur fears failure, but the best don't avoid it. They systematize recovery. In this episode, we break down what separates those who crumble from those who come back stronger.
Have you ever thought about this? You are not the same person to everybody. To some, you are the villain. To others, you are the hero. Success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about systematizing recovery. Volume trumps everything. Just continue moving forward. In most everything in life, the people who get good are the ones who purely didn't quit.
You'll learn why systems matter more than talent or luck, how to measure good versus bad recovery, and why a plan B isn't the same as a recovery system. We dive into the psychology of failure, how upbringing, mindset, and speed of decision-making define who wins long-term. Because failure isn't the end, it's data. And those who recover fastest win.
Talent or luck will take you so far, but it's also chaotic and exhausting. Systems bring you the level of peace and automation that you need in order to grow and continue to scale. And one of the things that I've learned over time is to actually be more compassionate with myself and not beat myself up. You are chasing a 1% life. And so with that comes extraordinary size problems. Just remember that and give yourself some grace as you're picking yourself back up. Have you ever thought about this? You are not the same person to everybody. To some, you are the villain. To others, you are the hero. Some people you showed up for, and others remember that you didn't. But the vast majority, you're just a fleeting thought and something they barely remember. We give so much energy and attention to how we show up to others, feeling shy or insecure or that we'll be judged. And for the vast majority of people, they barely remember interacting with you. So one piece of advice is don't let people rob you of your joy and your attention, and just go for it. Success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about systematizing recovery. Too many people avoid failure at all costs, but that's the wrong framework. Most of success is just winging at attrition. I think most people just don't realize. Think about New Year's resolutions. The busiest time at gyms is January 1st. And for the people who consistently go to the gym, they kind of raise their eyebrows, roll their eyes, and go, I can't wait for March for everybody to quit. And one of the things I've learned, whether in this season of life, is creating content, something that doesn't come naturally to me, that feels completely out of my skill set. But what I've been watching and learning is that volume trumps everything. Just continue moving forward. And that same thought process can be applied to just about anything. It could be working out. It could be making your phone calls for your startup business, whether you're prospecting for a service or bringing a product to market that's a physical product or a consumable product. You have to be willing to just get back up. And most everything in life, the people who get good are the ones who purely didn't quit. Think about the graduation rates from college. Think about the folks that make the sports team. It's the ones who just kept getting up and systematizing the ability to overcome the small setback. And I think people picture this finished product like the movie clip that's 3 minutes. And what people don't realize is that come up is normally 5, 7, 10 years of just getting incrementally better. But all of a sudden, there's that magical moment where everything becomes automatic and you can say the thing, you can lift the weight, you know how to do the process, and it becomes automatic. And before you know it, you're an expert, and everybody around you is just getting started because the people that started around the same time you did quit. The personality of someone who avoids failure versus the personality of someone who systematizes moving forward is one of not being scared to fail. I think so many conversations take place in our own head of not looking good, about being embarrassed. And when you think about it, it's irrelevant. One of the mental frames I think about often is go back to being in middle school or high school and something that gave you paralyzing fear, whether for me it was like braces and acne and not having the right clothing brands and not fitting in, is so irrelevant today. And it's easy to go back to that moment when you were a kid where something seems so logical now. But there are things holding you back in this moment as a full-grown adult that is holding you back, that is a fear of failure. So if you can actually create an anchor and think through what right now is holding you back that you're 20-year-old version in the future, 20 years from now, would just find ridiculous. And you can find the irony in it all. And just know that nobody gets out alive and it really doesn't matter. So just go for it. What it means to be a systems thinker and create a framework for recovery is to actually approach failure as a forward progress. I think too many people think of failure as an endpoint where you have to start over from zero. And the framework is really you're moving from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and it's actually a sequential process. And if you can understand that failure is actually the forward progress in creating a skill, a business, creating a framework of what not to do. So documenting the failure so you can create an SOP. So the next time that same scenario pops up, you know exactly what to do as you build a business and you create leverage and you have other people going through the same process. You can give them the steps of what not to do. So not everyone has to go through the same learning curve as you. That's how you create failure into a forward progress of winning. The reason why systems are way more important than talent or luck, it's because that's what creates operational excellence. Talent or luck will take you so far, but it's also chaotic and exhausting. Someone who has a system to how they respond to emails, how do they deal with customers, how they approach the same decision that pops up 100 times a day. With a system, it's effortless. Without systems and winging it, it's chaotic and exhausting. So systems bring you the level of peace and automation that you need in order to grow and continue to scale. One of the things I've learned over my time as an entrepreneur is to actually give yourself grace with failure. I think too many people attach to meaning and are the harshest critics of themselves. Typically, the people around you tell you it's okay and they still love you, but you don't give yourself that level of grace. And one of the things that I've learned over time is to actually be more compassionate with myself and not beat myself up, because we turn out to be our harshest critics. I would tell everybody that that little voice inside your head is probably more brutal with you than anything you tolerate from an external voice. And so just remember that you're in the game and you're still playing and you're climbing. Don't look at failure as an endpoint, but just as another learning opportunity. There's a very big difference between creating systems for recovery from failure than having a plan B. A plan B means that you're not fully committed to the idea. And there's nothing wrong with having an alternative if you completely strike out. But I think most entrepreneurs don't put enough energy or effort in. And a good visual analogy is when you're seeing a seed grow and break through the ground. You could see 8-9 months of progress before you can visually see the outcome. And I think most people fail at most endeavors, whether it is a personal journey of getting into shape or building a business or starting something from zero, is that they don't realize that there is 3, 6, 9, 10 months of activity with almost nothing to show for it. And all of a sudden there's a tipping point that most people never get to because it requires getting back up and systematizing, moving past that failure point. I think everyone's fear of failure comes from the way we were all raised. We are all taught that getting a grade below, 65 or 70 is unacceptable. It makes you average. And so we're taught to work on these small weaknesses versus just understanding that there's so much to be learned from failing. There's a famous interview with Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, where she said her father, every day after school during dinner, asked them what they failed at that day, because he believed that there is so much more to be learned from failure. I think one of the fallacies and the dangers of succeeding is it's not a very good teacher. Success gives you false confidence that you are that good. And sometimes succeeding is just right place, right time, and not understanding that luck had more to do with it than your processes. And that's what failure teaches you. I've been asked many times, what's the difference between a failure that teaches you something versus wasted your time? And I think it's just perspective. If you look at failure as a waste of time and not being willing to own everything, one of the frameworks I've always had in my head is radical ownership. Everything that happens to me, good and bad, is my fault and my responsibility. And if you approach life with that vantage point, it puts you in a place of curiosity to see what you could have done differently when the opportunity presents itself versus just resigning to unlucky or just failing because you were not prepared. Instead of, you can take what you can learn in case the situation ever presents itself and you can react quickly. One of the toughest things about being a founder is it's very lonely. When you have moments that are low, there's very few people you can talk to. You can't always call your investors because they might lose faith in you. You can't really tell your employees because they could get discouraged and quit. So what I found useful is having a group of folks that are third party that don't have a vested interest in that venture. They can be a sounding board for you, whether you call them mentors or peers in a kind of mastermind group. But having an outlet where you can actually get unbiased opinions that's not self-interested because they have a vested interest in the venture is probably one of the best things that you can do for your mental health. For an entrepreneur going through a failure right now, the first thing I want you to acknowledge is that you are chasing a 1% life. You want to live like most people on planet Earth don't get to, which is driving your own destiny and choosing what you get to do every day. So first of all, it's a reminder that you're going for the extraordinary in life. And so with that comes extraordinary size problems. And so what seems uncommon, it's because it is. And so just remember that and give yourself some grace as you're picking yourself back up, because most entrepreneurs will trade an 80-hour work week for themselves than 40 for somebody else.